This is the Rich Dad StockCast with Andy Tanner, the show that kicks 401ks in the asphalt and teaches you to be the master of your own stock investing domain. And here's your host, Greg Arthur.
All right, welcome to the show. This show is something that is personally very difficult for me. Robert is always teaching that the best way to learn is through your mistakes. And man, I hate learning that way. I'd rather learn from Robert's mistakes and let him tell me. But supposedly it gets deeper into your psyche. The pain is a better way to learn than positive reward. It's kind of a sick human nature thing. So with that, we're going to bring in Andy Tanner, and what he's going to do is he's going to talk about the 5 biggest mistakes people make in stock investing. And hopefully you don't make them yourself so you don't feel as much pain. And hopefully Robert's a little bit wrong and you can learn from other people's mistakes. And if you can't, you're screwed, and you'll know the mistakes are coming and you still do it. I don't know what to tell you. So with that, let's bring Andy in, and so he can make us feel really bad about all the mistakes that people make and that we're going to.
Well, don't feel too bad. I think, I don't have any metrics to say, we have scientific proof through study that these are the 5 worst ones. I'm going to give my opinion.
All right.
And if it makes you feel any better, these will come from my own experience.
That is what I want to know. Like, how many of the 5 have you made?
It's funny, Greg. I would hate to ever put out the idea that I'm flawless or don't make mistakes or don't lose money. I can say that as I've gotten older and more experienced, my losses have gotten smaller. In the early days, we took a bath, man, on a few things, and I'm not alone in that. But it just seems like in this day and age, if you make a mistake, it's on YouTube and you're a bad person, you're evil, and people are just going to pounce on you. And hey, good people do dumb things, and we have flaws. I don't think, it's bad to say, oh, he's a good person, he's a bad person. He's got some good things he does, and he's got some character flaws too. So I know that's where I'm at, and work on it. So let's get right in the list, shall we?
Yeah. One quick thing. One of the things Robert hates most about school is when you make a mistake, they penalize you. Stupid. So that's not the intent of this show.
No.
And I'll tell you from personal experience, Mike, I have 3 high schoolers, and when they take a test, they get their score, but they never get to see what they missed. And so they never get to actually learn like what they didn't know or what they missed. It's the stupidest thing ever. I feel school is just there to make you feel stupid. So not the intention of this podcast. This podcast is actually hopefully to help you get smarter. So
absolutely. Sorry, okay. So we'll go 5 down to 1. Number 5, investing with your emotions, investing emotionally. There's a saying that says, when emotion goes up, intelligence goes down. I think I heard Blair Singer say that the first time. And I that hit me so strong because I immediately looked for validation of that statement in my life, like we tend to do. And I wow, there's been times where I've been overly excited and said stupid stuff. There's been a lot of times where I've been angry at a referee and said things I shouldn't, or greedy or fearful. And so when emotion goes up, intelligence goes down. And that's true. The 2 emotions that are most prevalent in investing are greed and panic. And they're both fear-based. Greed is the fear of missing out. We did an episode a while back on GameStop, and people saw, oh, everyone's making money, there's something happening here, I don't want to miss out. And their fear of the big score got them into something they shouldn't have. And that's kind of how guys like Bernie Madoff work. Oh, you better get in now or you're going to miss the boat.
Yep.
And so that's a big deal. The other one is panic, and that's the fear of losing what you got. That's when you see your 401k tanking and you're losing what you have. So one's about fear out of what could be, one's fear of losing what you have. And I would just say that the one of the great books I read early was by Jack Schwager. In fact, he's got another book out now, and he has a series called Market Wizards, and all it is a bunch of books where he interviews the most successful investors and traders that are out there. And they have some are fundamental guys, some are technical guys, some are quant guys, all kinds of different methods. But every single one, the common thread is they traded a system that was independent of their emotions. And so that's number 5, is if you ever feel angst, greed, excitement, learn to be in tune with your emotions. Try to be more like Mr. Spock rather than Dr. McCoy or Captain Kirk.
That's true. More than investing, I do a lot of marketing. and I get all passionate, like this ad, this is the one that's going to kill it.
This is going to be,
yeah, it's going to make millions. And of course it flops. And then you got to go back, look at the data, have the numbers instead of your emotions tell you what did and didn't work. Yep. Hate it. 100%. Absolutely hate it.
So number 5. Number 4 is trading without a plan. In my 4 pillars of investing class, the first order of business is to organize your financial statement for income, what are your income, expenses, assets, liabilities, net worth, credit score, and buying power. Those 8 numbers are critical. And as you look at those 8 numbers each week or each month or each quarter, how often you and your significant others want to do that, or whoever you're trading with or yourself, you set goals there and you say, okay, my plan is to increase cash flow. My plan is to hedge against loss of what I already have. And you start to learn how to make a plan, and then you plan your investing, and then you plan your work and work your plan. And again, tied to that idea of emotion, if you can lay out a plan and say, look, this is just what I do, right? And you follow the plan regardless of how you feel that day. Warren Buffett, for example, we had a change from Democrat to Republican and then Republican to Democrat and back and forth. And Buffett says, look, I've done the same thing, since the 40s, and I'm not going to change what I do. It's just because of how I feel about, who's president or who isn't, all that stuff. I'm just going to keep buying assets. So I would say that some people don't really have a plan, and they just throw money here and throw money there. And they're like a ship without a rudder. They have no blueprint to go from. So make sure you have an investing plan. Is it real estate? Is it stocks? Is it a combination of those? And, a financial planner is better for a plan than advice, maybe. A good plan is probably better than advice. So have a plan.
So can I kick in on that too? One time on the staff meetings, Robert had us all go through and tell him what our financial dream was, right?
Yeah.
And then he'd have us all go through, okay, where are you? Where are you starting from? And none of us had filled out our financials. No one could say, I'm starting here. And he got a little pissed. But he's like, how the hell can you plan to get here if you don't even know where you are now?
Yeah.
So you mentioned the 8 things you need to start with. That to me is the foundation. And obviously I learned that the hard way because I got my tail end chewed out, but it was a really valuable lesson.
Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. This grows, emotions grow into the idea of having a plan, because if you have a plan, that helps deal with your emotions. And if you have a plan, it'll help you avoid this one. And this is a big one. This could have been number 1 possibly. Third most brutal mistake is something we call position size. And what happens is a lot of people, particularly when they learn that they can get paid by making promises with options, I say, oh, I'm going to promise to buy this. I don't think it'll really get there. I don't think I really have to keep that promise, but I get paid handsomely for making it. So I'll make this promise. And what they do is they size their position, the amount of contracts or shares they want to participate with. They size that to the reward they want rather than to the risk. And so someone, this is dangerous, because someone says, well, I want a passive income above my expenses. I want an asset that maybe pays my car payment. So maybe my car payment, someone's got a car payment, I don't know what they are, like $500-$600 a month maybe. So they'll start a cash flow strategy with the idea to try to make $500-$600 a month. That's position sizing to reward, rather than understanding, well, yeah, but in investing, things can go wrong. And if you have a problem, it could cost you a lot more than that. So it's better to position size to risk by saying, how much of my capital can I put to work? How many soldiers can I deploy here? And if some of the soldiers are killed, what does that do to my army? And so position sizing is huge. Don't confuse that with diversification, although it happens when you don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? Don't confuse that with diversification, but position sizing is a very real thing. If you were to go to Las Vegas and go to the roulette table or the 21 table, blackjack, and you were to do something called martingaling, which means I bet $1, I lose. I bet $2, I lose. I bet $4, I lose. I bet $8, I lose. I bet $16, I lose. I bet $32, 64, all the way up there. You know, any of those hands I win, I get all that money back plus I'm up $1, right? So you could just martingale that. So why don't people do that? Because if you double your bet every time, eventually you're going to win, recoup all of your losses and have a profit at the end and then start over, right? That is a system that would win. Well, the casino has something called a table limit, a position size limit. So maybe it's $100. So I can go 2, 4, or 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. But after that, I'd have to go to 128. And it's that seventh hand in a row that you lose that now you've lost all that money and there's nothing you can do now. So it's important to have a position size. And for a lot of people, they'll position to reward and blow up their account. So keep your position size reasonable. Don't ever put more than 1 or 2%, perhaps, would be a good number of what you're doing in one place where you could lose it.
So it sounds a little bit like instead of using greed for your position size, you're using fear. But earlier we said, don't use greed or fear.
Does it sound like maybe I'm speaking from experience on that one?
But how do you separate that from fear? Because it sounded like earlier we said, don't let fear take.
It's a great question, Greg. Yeah, it's a great question. There's fear and then there's smarts, right? You could have a fear of not putting in enough, right? Of losing it too, right? And so how does the casino do that? Well, they look at the math and they say, this is what makes sense for us to do. We're going to put a table limit of 100 because of what an actuarial table would say or what statistical probabilities would say, right? And so it's very, very important to use your head, not your heart. That's a great point, is I'm not position sizing to risk because I'm afraid. I'm doing it because I'm smart. And that can be tough to keep it that small, actually, because the greed is what makes your position size too small? Greed. What makes your position size, what makes your position size too small? Fear. What makes it too large? Greed. And so we want to have a very smart position size that's dispassionate. That's a great point.
Okay, so that goes back to your process, even.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's probably the one in my life that has been the worst, and it's been great to have my son trade with me. Sometimes I have a lot of hats that I wear. I teach once in a while as a rich dad advisor. I'll do a speaking engagement. I have a business that teaches investing at the Cash Flow Academy. I travel a bit. I've got 2 teenagers. There's basketball to coach and things to do. And I have a wonderful wife and I have hobbies. And so there's a lot of stuff that goes on, books to write, things to do. And one of the challenges I've always had is I'm not a man that sits down and focuses. I'm all over the place. I mean, I'm always struggling to stay organized. That's why I have my wife to help me. And I'll tell you, if you don't have consistency in your trading to where you set aside, you don't have to day trade and look at the computer all day long. But I'll tell you, it's been interesting because my son's very consistent. His personality is totally different than me. And I've actually gotten better because he will keep me more consistent, where we have a routine that doesn't cut corners. We don't look at our watch and say, oh, it's fine for today. We go through it. And I have high hopes for him, because if you lack focus in what you're doing, all of a sudden you turn your head and you let a week go by or 3 or 4 days go by without paying attention to stuff. That's when the financial statement can, expenses get too high or income drops or liabilities go up and you weren't paying attention. And so monitoring your financial statement and as it changes, and monitoring your investments, particularly if you're going to be aggressive with options that need active management. There's certain positions I have that I don't worry too much about stock wise, but I absolutely have to be on it. Let me show you a good mistake, what that would look like in detail if I could. Maybe I have a basic stock and I write a covered call. We've talked about those on this podcast. And that call is, out of the money. And my thinking is the stock will probably go up and not quite make it. And I keep the premium and get the gain in my stock. If my stock goes beyond that strike price, now I'm kind of in trouble, because now I could get my stock called away. Do I want to have that happen? And if I want to buy it back, the delta's changed so quick. The amount of money that I'm going to lose buying that back changes way, way fast now. So, I have alerts that say, hey, the stock's gotten to this level, better pay attention and make an adjustment. You're probably gonna have to take a little loss on this one, Andy. But if you don't nip that in the bud and either hedge by buying more stock or roll up or roll out or adjust, the amount of money you lose just by not paying attention can be drastic, and it can be too much. And so being consistent and focusing is better than the mistake of a lack of consistency. And isn't that kind of the way it is? That's a mistake in your marriage. That's a mistake in your life. That's a mistake as a father. Focus and consistency is a huge part of success in any venture, and investing is not going to be any different.
I feel the same way with working out. If I don't have a set time,
yeah,
I keep pushing out till I don't never do it. And actually, when I take courses, like I've taken your course, if I don't have a set time of the day to dedicate to that course, I'm going to keep pushing it out. So totally agree.
That's a great one, Greg. Stephen Covey has the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It just shows you how powerless a book is, because I've traveled all over the world and I ask people, who's read the 7 Habits? And they say, oh, yeah, I've read it. I say, good, name them. No one can do it. I've done the same thing in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. What are the 6 lessons, Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Go. Well, it was a great book. Yeah, but what are the 6 lessons? Go. Well, I don't know. And habit number 3 in the 7 habits is to put first things first. That's habit number 3. And he actually wrote a follow-up book simply on that. He said, well, there's things that are important and things that are urgent. Choking is urgent and important. But there's things that are important that aren't really urgent. Exercise, doing investing, journal keeping, right? Fitness. And then there's things that are urgent but not important. Emails, phone calls, text, Facebook pops up. And then there's things that are neither important nor urgent, which is television, stuff like that, surfing the web, stuff like that. So how we spend our time and remain focused on the things that are important and maybe not as urgent, that's the category investing falls into. There's nothing immediate about it that's pounding on me today. And if I turn my head, that's when your weight changes or your marriage starts to falter. Focus and consistency. So that brings us down. So we've got 5, 4, 3, 2. Emotional trading without a plan, position sizing to reward rather than risk, and a lack of focus and consistency. All of these have cost me money. But the number 1 is not going to be a surprise. It's coming. The number 1 is trading without education and investing not knowing what you're doing. Greg, my brother is a police officer. Can you imagine trying to do that job with no training and without the police academy? My brother-in-law is an emergency room doctor. Can you imagine do that without any training? I have another brother-in-law who's an attorney. Can you imagine going to court without any training? Can you imagine being an architect without any training, an accountant without any training? Every occupation you can think of. If you drive a taxi in London, you should see the test they've got to take to know those crazy streets. Hairdressers need 2,000 hours of practice and training before they can cut hair. And, if they cut my hair and it doesn't work out, I wait a week, right? Or whatever. Right. And so, it is astounding to me that we live in a world where we demand training that would be required for all these jobs. And all of a sudden people are professional investors on Robinhood trading GameStop as if they were Warren Buffett. The lack of respect for financial education is astounding, and it's fed by Wall Street. It's fed by the culture of advice, because an educated investor doesn't need to pay advisory fees because he or she can do this on their own. I will say that Warren Buffett said this. He said, this is the only industry I can think of where the professional efforts subtract value from the layman could do himself, unquote. And it is also, I will add, the only industry I know of where people feel that they can hop right in and do well without any study, without any practice, and without any experience. I can't think of any venture worthwhile. Being a basketball player is practice. It's education. It's going to practice and learning how the game works. Being a doctor, being a lawyer, whatever it is you're going to do is an education deal. I'll also say this, of all the asset classes, real estate, stocks, business, commodities, paper assets have the most participation with the least education of any other asset class. People in 401ks all over the place knowing nothing about what they're doing. So the thing that will take money from a person's pocket faster than anything else is a lack of education. And when I would delve into things that I did not fully understand, it cost me tens of thousands of dollars in mistakes that were so preventable. You know, trading options, not knowing how to delta hedge is a good example of that. Trading options, not knowing how to position size is a good example of that. So getting your education, being patient, paper trading, that'll get it done. So there you go.
There you go. That's 5.
Top 5. We
And
did that about 5 minutes a piece. My goal was 25 minutes. We're probably 26, so we'll see.
I think you nailed it.
Awesome,
Well,
Greg.
You ended on education, so let's make sure everyone knows that you do offer free education in the show notes. So take advantage of that. And if you really like your education, they can actually pay a little bit and get your full education at a much higher level. So, Andy, thank you for the show, and also thank you for offering the education, and in the hope that we don't make that mistake.
Yeah, and there's plenty of other mistakes to make. That's just my top 5. Education, discipline will go a long way on attacking a lot of those mistakes. Thanks, Greg.
Appreciate it, Andy. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.